Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Josh, and today we are doing a long overdue, much delayed, much requested, and my sincere apologies for taking so long to get to this video as well, because a number of you guys have been asking for this. Today we are doing a 2-year in review of my 2023, my beloved Lexus GX460. For those of you who have been with me here on the channel, you will know that I did buy this car. Actually, at the point that I'm recording this, I bought this car 2 years and basically a month and a half ago from now. And so by the time it's going out, it's probably like, I've owned this car now for like 2 years and 2 months. Now, the thing about this GX460 is, and you'll probably know this if you've been with me here on the channel for any period of time, I'm sure that's where like half my subscribers have come from, is my GX460 videos. I have already done basically every video that I could think about and that you guys have asked for on this truck. I did a video when we bought it. I did a video 6 months in. I did a video 1 year in. I did a video on the various road trips and things that we've taken. I had a whole vlog series from last summer about us taking this car on an epic road trip through the Mountain West. So anyway, I actually was not planning to do a 2-year in ownership review because I've done all of that and I've basically said everything that I've wanted to say about this. But you guys have been asking, you have a number of questions now that I have gotten to the 2-year mark with this car, and I'll tell you right up front, the third question, which is cosmetic condition, that's probably going to be the bulk of this video because you guys did want to know, after 2 years, how is my ecru, my super light, almost white kind of interior doing? How's the Caviar paint on the outside doing? And although it shouldn't be surprising, there are a lot of you out there in the market for one of these, even though they are 2 years out of date. And that's how we're going to be doing this today. I have 10 questions that I'm going to answer from the perspective of having owned this car now for, again, way over 2 years at this point. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive into the first question, which is 2 years into ownership of my GX and now a year into the GX550 being out on the roads and available for sale and all this kind of thing. Any regrets? And I have to be honest with you guys here, not a single one. I am so happy to have this car. I'm so happy to have been able to buy it new, before it went away and left the showrooms as a new vehicle back in 2023. The GX460 is the perfect vehicle for me because I am not your average overlander and off-roader. I don't dedicate my weekends to, climbing up the face of a mountain in my SUV or truck. I love this car for road tripping, and that is why we bought it, because there is nothing, and I've said this all before, but there is nothing like the GX460 out on the open road. If you're doing cross-country road tripping, if you're doing even just, city to city, like, 2 to 5 hour kind of road tripping on the open highway, there is nothing better than this GX460, and there are so many reasons for that, which again I've touched on before, but I'll give you the hit list here. So the interior of this car is so premium. You've got beautiful wood surfaces, you've got the most comfortable seats, you've got exquisite finishing everywhere you look. You've got old school Toyota build quality. This thing feels like a tank. It feels like the best made Swiss watch. There are no rattles, there are no squeaks. All the plastics are really hardy and durable in a way where just, every new car out there, including new Toyota trucks out there, just aren't. And you can get color options in the GX460 like my ecru interior. This thing has a pure white, almost, it's a beige, but very light beige kind of interior. It feels so light, it feels so airy, it feels so premium. I love it. And then from the drivetrain and just kind of mechanical perspective, of course, you've got a big, old school, naturally aspirated V8 engine under the hood, and there's nothing better than that for just an incredible road trip, because the V8s that Lexus and Toyota used to do, you take this thing out on the road, it is silent. It is like bank vault quiet in here. And a big part of that is because of how refined these big, large displacement, old school, naturally aspirated engines are. There's just nothing like it. And then finally, on just kind of the suspension setup on here, we of course have KDSS, like all GX460s had, many 4Runners from 5th generation had, and now No Forerunners have that, no Land Cruisers have that, and only a few select GX550s have that, at least at this point in time. And KDSS is probably the most underrated thing about these GX460s and Forerunners that had them, because you really don't feel like you're driving a truck or a body-on-frame vehicle when you have KDSS in one of these trucks. And for that reason, again, on long open stretches of road, absolutely incredible. And you know, the other thing about the GX550, and I've said this again before as well, but if I was looking for to buy a Toyota SUV or any kind of SUV to use as a dedicated overlanding rig, I am not about to go out and spend 80 grand on that thing. Because what if I trash it on the trails, or it gets smashed up, or you know, I roll it somewhere, or you know, whatever. Like, overlanding vehicles and overlanding rigs is what they tend to call them. Those things take a ton of wear, and I'm not about to do that in some $80,000, you know, Lexus GX550. Are there people out there dumb enough to do that? Absolutely. But for me, no. If I wanted something like that, I would be going out and getting like the cheapest 5th gen Toyota 4Runner SR5 that I could find, because I could buy it in cash and then just go from there. Okay, next question. What is a feature that no one talks about with the GX460 that you absolutely love? Okay, so I had to think about this one, and I actually think that you guys and I have found the one thing I have never talked about this GX460 here on the channel before. So let me put a video clip here in the video of me showing you the most underrated feature that nobody talks about and that I might not have talked about yet either. Alright guys, favorite feature that nobody talks about for me would have to be, keep your eyes right here as we approach the car. Did you see that? This beautiful little light carpet and lights on the running board illuminated as we walked up to the car. I didn't have to unlock it, I didn't have to touch it, and as we sort of backed away from the car, it went away. So let's go back up to the car now. And there we go. The light carpet turns on. And let me now open the door so that they stay on. And what you can see is happening here is we've got lights, again, that illuminate the running board and then also create this beautiful soft carpet of light along the side of the vehicle. And what I really like about this versus some cars that just do, like, you know, they'll illuminate their logo or something, or they'll just put like a little circle of light right there. I love that this kind of just illuminates the entire side of the vehicle. It is not overly bright where it's obnoxious, but it's bright enough to give you, you know, enough light around the side of the vehicle. So let's go look at the other side here. And you can see, same thing there. Beautiful little ambient light side effect on the car. The same way that, you know, we like to uplight our houses and things like that. That's the car basically doing the same thing. And I actually really like, also, in addition to that, I really like with the ecru interior in particular. I like having the warmer, more incandescent lights in the interior of the car, because I just think that the incandescent lights make this whole interior look so much more welcoming and warm and soft, because the ecru itself is a warmer tone of color. So the incandescent lights really aid in that, and these are actually, they're really bright, as you can probably see on camera. And I love getting into and just kind of approaching the car with all of this going on, again, at night or in the morning, whenever it's dark outside. And the thing is, if the lights inside, and if that were, you know, cool white like the LED headlights on the car, I just think it would have kind of a more sterile, more, I don't know, hospital-like industrial kind of effect versus this really nice, really warm kind of colorscape that we've got. And then again, the way that the warm incandescent lighting works with the ecru interior. I mean, check that out. Isn't that beautiful? So, you know, in the morning, I'm actually going to be driving this car. I'm driving it to work because I'm dropping it off for its 2-year service this morning. So when I leave, it'll still be dark the way it is now. So I will walk up to my beautiful GX. I'll get my light carpet. I'll step inside and get to drive this absolutely beautiful car. And then again, I love setting off like this in the morning or at night, or coming back to this car at night after a long day, or, you know, whatever the case may be. So yeah, this just feels so old school luxury, old school Lexus, so warm, so inviting, so soft. So yeah, ambient lighting, my favorite feature that nobody talks about.
And let's go ahead and lock her up. There we go.
Okay, next question, and again, this is going to be probably the longest chapter in the video, so if you aren't interested or don't care about this, feel free to skip right over this. But the third question is, can you show us how the car has held up cosmetically? I'm most interested in your black paint on the outside and light interior here on the inside. I really want one that looks exactly like yours, but both of those things scare me. So can you please show me how all of that has held up? And I have to say, I'm going to put a clip in here, but remarkably well on both fronts. So let's take a look at that now. All right, guys, here we go with our full exterior and interior walk around. We have a beautiful sunny day, as you can see. So you'll be able to see this car in all of its wonderful detail. Now, like I've probably said elsewhere in this video, or if I haven't, I'll say it now. This car does not get driven every day, so it's not going to have like your average type of wear and tear from 12,000 miles of, driving to and from work every day. However, this car actually probably has seen more than its fair share and more than most cars of open highway driving, rough road driving, like cottage trail driving and things like that, because this is our road trip car. This is our adventure mobile. So whether we're doing a road trip from like here to Dallas or here to New Mexico, or a much longer like cross country road trip, this is the car that we take. And that's really where you end up picking up a lot of road debris and road rash and things like that. Now with this car, though, because from almost day one, like 2 weeks after I bought this, I took it to our wonderful detail shop, Authentic Details, to have the full front of the vehicle wrapped in PPF, or paint protection film. And it's actually done a really great job it's done exactly what it's supposed to do, which is keeping the front of the car free from rock chips and road debris and road rash and all that kind of thing that we would have otherwise picked up in all the adventures that we've taken this car on. As you guys may know, we took this car on a whole like Mountain West road trip. It was about, I think, 5,000 miles in July of 2024, and we were in Utah and New Mexico and Colorado and Wyoming. And those Mountain West states, road safety is just like not a thing. So, we were driving through areas where we had, just like gravel hitting the car. At one point in Utah, it sounded like a hailstorm, that we were driving through a hailstorm, because you would just hear like, just kind of stuff hitting the metal bodywork of the car. And I was a nervous wreck by the time we got to our hotel, but it ended up being okay. Most of it hit the front of the car. And again, the full front of this vehicle is fully wrapped in PPF. Edges are wrapped, lights are wrapped, everything like that. So really the only major damage I have on this car are a few like real small kind of chips in the paint, like on the grill and some of the plastic surfaces. And those can be easily replaced if they ever got just to the point where it was atrocious. Lights are wrapped, same thing, all the way down. And then the other thing that we had our detail shop was do a full strip, a wide strip, along the bottom edge of the paint, along the running boards, also fully wrapped. One thing I do have to take back to them for at some point is, you can see I've got some peeling of the PPF here down on the sides. This is kind of somewhat inevitable, just because, wrapping a piece like this here is kind of difficult, because there's not really much here for the PPF to fully adhere to. But they do warranty the PPF and their workmanship for 10 years, so we're well within that, obviously. Down the side of the car, I'm actually surprised, because like from about here on up, nothing's wrapped, and it still looks really, really good, all things considered. No major rock chips, scratches, dings, dents, scrapes, nothing like that. Same on the other side and the back. I, of course, did add, at some point, pretty soon after I got the car, the old school Lexus badge. I don't know why Lexus got rid of that on some of their newer cars, because the way that this car came, it had the Lexus emblem and then GX460 over there, and there was like nothing over here, and I just thought that looked really weird. So I put the old school Lexus badge back on, and I'm really happy I did that. Coming around to the other side, of course, same thing. This car is in really, really, really great condition. We also do take like just exceptional care of our cars. These are always hand washed as well. So one of the things that I got a ton of shit about when I bought this car was, oh my God, you bought black. It's going to get, it's going to have swirl marks. It's going to just, show every little thing. And as you can see here, these sail panels here, these big kind of like, areas of bodywork. This is where you would see a lot of that. And if on a black car that's not well taken care of, look at a body panel that's kind of flat like this, or any of the doors, and you will typically see a lot of swirl marks and, kind of like hairline scratches. Not on this car. Paint on this car is still in really good shape. Part of that is because it's Caviar, and we'll talk about that later in the video as well. But yeah, all in all, I think this car is still in really great shape. Now, let's take a look at the inside, because this was the other thing that I got a ton of shit about when I bought this car, and that is, of course, my ecru interior. Oh my God, you guys. The amount of crap that I got from people about having bought an ecru light interior car. People were like, in 2 years, this is just going to be trashed, and you're going to see it's going to be a totally, fully discolored and blah, 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 if you wear jeans and, all that kind of stuff. I mean, people would not let up about how difficult or how, impossible it is to keep a light colored interior clean. And I have to say, I do take really good care of my cars. So they're never, I'm never in here like with muddy shoes or, just completely like trashed pants or whatnot. But everything in here, you guys, is still, it looks like it's brand new. One, it's because I take care of it, but also it's just, I don't know. I think people get way too worked up about light colored interiors. If you take care of a light colored interior, it's fine. And when you buy a vehicle like this, something that's $60,000 to $70,000 or whatnot, I mean, you'd be pretty stupid to buy this car and not take care of it. So you can see here on the interior, let me show you the driver's seat here. So obviously this is the driver's seat. This is the most used seat in the car. I think the back seat's gotten used like maybe 3 times in the 2 years that I've owned this car. So that's obviously perfect. But I or somebody is in this seat every single time the car is driven, because somebody has to be. It's the driver's seat. But even here, like, look at this. It's still in really great shape. And we've got direct, bright sunlight coming on down into the car here. And you can see, actually, that's perfect. The sun went behind the clouds, so we a little bit less contrast here. But you can see, I mean, look at this. The Ecru Nulux that I have here it's perfect. It's beautiful. In great shape. Same thing with the armrest. I'm so glad I bought this car. And what was sad about when I first started making videos about this car? Some folks said, oh, I really want a GX like yours, with the beautiful Ecru interior, but I'm just too scared. I can't do it, And then they went and bought an GX with like a black interior. And no offense to anyone who has a GX with a black interior, but part of this, buying a Lexus to me is having a more upgraded, more premium feeling and looking interior. And that's what you get with Ecru. Same thing with Rioja Red. I don't personally care for the sepia, but like, why would you ever buy a GX with a black interior? Because then it just looks like a 4Runner, So anyway, Ecru is perfect. I love it. It's beautiful. It just, perfection. Now, one of the things I did also want to touch on as we look at the interior here is the fact that I do have Nulux and not the semi-aniline leather. And this was yet another thing I got a bunch of shit about when I bought the car, because people were like, why would you buy, a Lexus with a synthetic leather interior? And here's the thing. Here's why I love Nulux and why I bought Nulux in this car. Because this is a car that I want to keep for the rest of my life, and I want to keep it looking as new as possible for as long as possible, Nulux is going to look the same way it does, it did the day it was new, as it does today, as it will in 10 years, as it will in 20 years, as long as you take care of it and you don't just leave it, sitting out in the sun so everything just cracks and gets brittle. Nulux, as opposed to leather, does not stretch and sag and fade and patina and warp over time the way that leather does. And the thing about semi-aniline leather that I don't think a lot of people fully understand is semi-aniline leather is meant to stretch and sag and fade and patina. It's meant to be like a beautiful old Hermes bag that you can tell that the person has used it for years and years and years. The problem with the car interior, of course, is that it just makes it start to look a little bit worn, a little bit torn up. it shows its age because it's supposed to. In a car interior though, I don't really want that. I want my interior to look exactly like this in 20 years, and with Nulux it absolutely will. And you've been seeing some photos here in the video that I found online from like used GXs of what these interiors look like when you have the semi-aniline leather and it does start to wear and stretch and fade and patina. All right, really quick before we wrap this up though, let's take a look. I, of course, last year, I have a whole video about this, so I won't get too far into it. I replaced the plastic window switches with the gray sapel wood. Can I get the texture there? Maybe, maybe not. Gray sapel wood inlays here, the bezels. I also replaced the gear shift lever here with the original OG GX460 gear shifter. This thing is so much nicer than what comes with the GX460 for 2023. It, of course, comes with a much nicer shift boot as well. I love that, the double stitching. It just feels more premium and more high-end than the cheaper stuff they started to put in the GX as the years went by. All of my gray sapel wood is still beautiful. I love it's these touches in this car that, again, have gone away for the GX550 that you no longer get in RXs, NXs, etc. Beautiful, full polished real wood steering wheel here. This is also that gray sapel wood. It's held up beautifully. If we climb inside, I can show you the same gray sapel wood on the passenger side there. Oh, there, you can kind of see the texture of the gray sapel wood a little bit better there. All things considered, just a really beautiful, wonderfully kept, wonderfully maintained GX. And look at that. The color, the interior color on this car is my favorite thing, and you can really see that there. So yeah, that is what the GX looks like 2 years in. And again, because it's Nulux, because I keep my cars, in showroom fresh condition, this GX will continue to look this way for, hopefully its entire life. So, yeah. Okay, next question. How much has this GX cost me to own over the 2 years I've had it, including maintenance, gas, and insurance? Okay, so I'll answer the gas part first, and I'll tell you that I have not tracked like every gas fill up in this car that I've ever done. Mainly because I know it's not efficient. I've got this giant 4.6 liter naturally aspirated V8 under the hood. There's no cylinder deactivation. There's no auto start stop. There's no, it doesn't run on the Atkinson cycle. It's port injected, not direct injected. This is not an efficient engine, and thus this is not an efficient car. So I just know, I almost don't want to know how much I have spent on gas in this car. What I can tell you though, based on my gas prices here in Texas, which are always going to be lower than the national average, typically here, a gallon of premium tends to be anywhere between $2.75 and $3.25 per gallon, 99% of the time. And at those prices, a full fill up in this GX, which tends to be for me anywhere between 18 and 20 gallons per fill up, tends to be about 60 to 75 bucks. For maintenance, I take this GX in every 6 months to get its oil changed and just to kind of have it, checked inside and out. And when I do that every 6 months, it's about 200 bucks for an oil change and, tire rotation and things like that. Now, one thing I do want to let you know here, this is a luxury car at the end of the day, and there are going to be times and service intervals with this car where you do need to do a differential fluid flush and things like that. Those services can get very expensive, especially if you do it at the dealer. So my rule of thumb is I tend to just kind of budget into my overall budget $1,000 per car per year. And if I don't spend it, I just save it for, down the line. If I do spend it, I budgeted for it. And then finally, with insurance costs, my insurance costs, much like my gas costs, are not going to be typical because we have 4 cars and they're all in the same policy, which means we get a giant discount for bundling there. We both have excellent driving records and excellent credit. And then on top of all of that, we have home, auto, and kind of umbrella and life insurance policies all with the same company. So we get dirt cheap rates on each of those things individually and then every car individually because of all that bundling that we do. So what I can tell you here is my half of our auto insurance policy, which again covers 4 cars every month, is $280, but that's to insure both my RAV4 Prime and my GX. Now, they don't break it down. Unfortunately, they don't really show us a breakdown of like the Civic is this much and the Mustang is that much and the GX is that much. So the only thing I can really do here is split out my half of our insurance policy and then divide it by 2 cars. And if I did that, this GX and my RAV4 Prime would both be about $140 per month or $1,600 a year to insure. So with all that having been said, and based on sound math, even though I haven't tracked every number and every penny that I've spent to own and maintain this car, I think it's a pretty safe bet to say that I've spent about $4,800, maybe $5,000 to own this car over 2 years. Though I don't know, and I don't think that that's typical. Okay, next question, and this is one that I get a lot, and you guys are just going to get a very straight out, kind of unvarnished answer. The question is, do you need to run premium gas? I really want to buy a GX460, but I'm concerned about the expense of running premium. Okay, so Toyota says in the manual and on the gas door and everywhere else they can put it in this car that you need to run 91 octane in this GX460. Now, a lot of people will say, but that's the same engine that's been in the Tundra in the past, and you don't need to run premium in there, so why do I need to run premium in this GX460? And I don't know the answer to that. Now, here's the thing, okay? Yes, it's the same engine, but even a lot of cars with the same engine can be tuned differently, can be programmed to run differently in a particular vehicular application, and can require, in certain cases, higher octane gas to achieve the kinds of results that automakers want. So Toyota says you need to run 91, and so that is what I do. Now, do you need to? I don't know. But here's what I'll say about people who will be like, I'm going to buy a GX460, but I'm concerned about gas expense, so I'm going to run regular. You're buying a luxury car, okay? And I don't mean for this to sound elitist or whatever, but like, if you didn't want to buy a luxury car with luxury car, expense and things like that, go buy a 4Runner, okay, with that 1GR FE V6, because that thing will run neglect. You could probably run that thing on like grain alcohol and it'll run, for 250,000 miles. But this 1UR FE V8, it is a little bit more fragile. The 1GR FE is a cast iron block, old school, like to the max. This is an aluminum block, okay? So it is a little bit newer. It is more fragile than the 4Runner's engine. Toyota says I need to run premium. I do run premium. I think you should run premium. And if you don't, and you end up with, any kind of engine issue later down the line, F around and find out. That's all I'm going to say. And that's what I tell people whenever they ask me this question. Okay, next question, and this is a good one. A good used GX460 like mine, so well maintained, in perfect cosmetic condition, blah, 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 is selling for what it did new. Is it worth it to buy it at that price? And I am so torn about this question because on one hand, I don't feel like you should ever buy a used car for what it costs new. I just think that is stupid for a number of reasons. On the other hand, Lexus dealers know what this car is. I know that they know that it's not made anymore. I know that they know that it's desirable for a number of reasons that the GX550 is not desirable. I know that they know that there's an audience of people like myself and all of you out there who would never think of a GX550, and so even at this point in time, they want the nicest possible GX460 that they can buy. Also, on top of that, the GX550 has gotten significantly more expensive. The GX550 starts around 65 grand now. And I've said this before, I'm going to say it again here. If you want, and I checked this, by the way, just to make sure it's still true for the 26 model year. If you want a GX550 with Mark Levinson, which I have in this car, and a few of the other features I have, like, my 3-zone climate control and things like that, you have to spend 80 grand and buy a GX550 luxury. So take that as you will. I think the value question is for you, like, are you willing to pay that? Are you willing to pay new price for a 2-year-old used car? If so, and you can find one like mine that's only been driven, 9,000 miles and has been lovingly maintained and washed and, taken care of every 2 weeks, rock on and do it. But the value question, it's up to you, whether you're willing to spend new price for a car that's 2 years old. Next question, best memory with my GX, our road trip. And I won't get into it here because I have so many videos on that, but that road trip and every road trip, honestly, that I've ever taken in this car, and I've driven this, even just a road trip up to Dallas from here where I live in Austin is so special. Driving this car around, partly because I don't drive it on a daily basis, so when I get into it, it always feels like an occasion. But being out on the open road, going out of state, our road trip, we went through the Mountain West. We saw 3 national parks. We saw mountains. We saw desert. We saw the red rocks of Utah. We saw, snow and ice up in Rocky Mountain National Park in Colorado. So many memories have just been, we've made so many memories in this car. And one of the reasons I want to keep this car for the rest of my life is because I want all those special road trips and all those memories that I will, create over what hopefully is a very long life. I want them all to be in this car because I want to be one of those old, Land Cruisers that you see 35, 40 years old, still running around like new, no problem, going on adventures and things like that. So yeah. Okay, next question. Who shouldn't or why shouldn't somebody buy a GX460? I don't know. I think everybody should buy a GX460. Who wouldn't or couldn't or shouldn't want a GX460? No, I'm kidding. No, there are a lot of potential downsides. This car is an old school truck. It's not efficient. It's got old school kind of antiquated technology. It doesn't have great driver assist. The steering is dead weight heavy, and there's just a lot of things about this car that if you want something that, if you want a Tesla, and that kind of experience, or you want a Rivian, better example, if you want a Rivian kind of experience, yeah, you're not getting that in here, and you shouldn't cross the GX460 off your list right away. If you want turbo power and, just obscene amounts of power, like what you get in a GX550 or a Sequoia turbo hybrid, cross the GX460 off your list. It's not that kind of thing. This is like the closest thing to like an old Lincoln Town Car or an old Ford Crown Vic. There are a lot of people who would not want an old Town Car or Crown Vic. I would love one, but that's because I love old school, V8 cars. But if that's not you, don't buy the GX460. Okay, second to last question. This is actually one I don't get that often, but I've gotten a number of questions recently, I think because people are out in the market. Do you have Caviar or Onyx Black? And what's the difference? Why did you buy yours? Or why did I choose this black? I have Caviar. It is technically black, but the thing I love about Caviar is a metallic black. And what that means is the car is black. And so in most lights, as you've been seeing throughout this video, it does look like just a regular black car. But because it's a metallic color, and this is a Lexus specific metallic color, which is the other reason I wanted it. So this color is not shared with any other Toyota vehicle out there. In the light, when the sunlight hits this car at just the right angle, the metallic fleck in the paint just comes to life, and it is one of the most beautiful colors I've ever seen. It's got silver, gold, and I think there might be white in there as well. So in some lights, it can look like, like this gold is coming to life kind of within the black paint on this car. In other lights, it can look almost like a gunmetal gray. And I love the way that light plays with the metallic fleck in this car. The difference between Caviar and Onyx is what you've been seeing here in this video is my metallic Caviar. Onyx Black is flat black. It's basically the same black that's on any Toyota Corolla out there. And a non-metallic color means you have no fleck in the paint and it just comes off as like flat black. To me, it's ugly. And the other thing about non-metallic paint, it shows every, scratch and swirl mark and things like that. And where metallic paint actually does hide a lot of that, even though it's still a black car. So yeah, Onyx Black, I think that's what's on the Blackline edition, for example. I don't think you can get Caviar on the Blackline. You just get Onyx. It's just a fancier name for like basic Toyota Corolla Black. So I would avoid it for that reason. And the fact that I think flat black paint looks like you just, spray painted a car with, Rust-Oleum or whatever. Okay, and finally, last question here. What can you buy new today to replace a GX460 if you don't want a dedicated off-roader like the new Land Cruiser, 4Runner, GX550, and Honda Passport? So, okay, not that I really don't want to end this on a bad note, but I don't really think there's a replacement for this car. And the folks who have asked this, cross Passport off that list too, because that was going to be one of the things I would say if you want a naturally aspirated, an SUV this size with a naturally aspirated, V6 or V8, Passport's the only game in town. MDX to a degree, And that might be what, you might look at an MDX, but the MDX is not going to have the kind of ride that this does. It's not going to feel like an old school truck, because it's not a truck, it's a unibody crossover SUV. I don't think there is a replacement. Everything else that is in this class and would theoretically be a replacement for the GX460, they're all, basically hardcore dedicated off-roaders now. Even the Passport, there's no real kind of urban version of the Passport, and at least as of now, Acura does not have a version of that would be more comparable to the GX460. Because the mass market SUV buyer seems to want, this rugged, plastic-clad off-roader, that's what they're making, and there's just really nothing, again, like this on the market. And so I really think that the next best thing that you can get is going to be something like an Escalade, an LX600, and a QX80. But those are in the next size class up, and they're massive. Like an Escalade, Grand Wagoneer, even an LX600. They're huge. This is a true mid-size SUV. Nice, compact footprint. Narrow enough to navigate around a city. Short enough to park in normal parking spaces without being an asshole and taking up like half of the one behind you. So going back to the question of, is it worth buying one of these, maybe even at new price? Maybe it is, because there isn't anything worth it. And if you can get an almost new, really well-maintained, lovingly maintained like mine, even at new price, maybe it is still worth it, because there isn't anything else on the market that can do what this car does. So yeah, I didn't mean to end on a bummer. I apologize for that, but those are all my thoughts, just kind of capping off 2 years of many, many, many thoughts and many, many videos on this GX460. I still love it so much. I want to keep this car for the rest of my life. I've honestly, you guys, never been so happy that I bought a car when I did. And, with the price of cars and the quality of cars and just the offerings out there on the market, I really think I'm going to be, for the rest of my life, or however long these cars will run, I'm going to be driving my RAV4 Prime with this GX460, at least for the next 10 years, because I refuse, flat out refuse, to buy any of the cars that are out there on the market at the prices that they're asking for them when I have these two. So, yeah. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope even though we've talked so much about this car on this channel, that this was helpful. I hope this answered your questions. If you have any more questions, leave them downstairs in the comments, or write me an email to the email that you see here on screen. For all of you who bought a GX around the same time I did, I hope that the last 2 years have treated you incredibly well. I hope for those of you who are in the market for a GX460 right now, that you find that perfect one, or, and that you love it as much as I do. I love mine. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. I always appreciate it. I will see you guys in the next one. Have a great one, and take care.